Some critics are warning that the new law may lead to job losses. Let's get some background now. Osborne Mola-tudi is a partner in employment at Hogan Lovells. He joins me now. Thanks very much for coming in, Osborne. We hear of this talk about job losses. Is that because companies would rather fire people than spend money on them?
Well, as a starting point, there has been no official announcement from the government insofar as the promulgation and the signing of this law by the president. But I saw from the article in Business Day that, in fact, he has earlier today signed the bill into law. But what it seeks to do is simply to improve what is perceived as low wages of vulnerable workers, to try and protect them from what is perceived as exploitation, etc. Many critics see that as not a step in the right direction, but nonetheless, generally it's seen to benefit those vulnerable workers going forward.
But hang on there. I just want to slam the brakes a little bit because there are these rules which could allow for exemptions. So employers who are unable to pay the minimum wage due to certain constraints in their businesses can get an exemption. Is that a get-out-of-jail-free card for them?
It's not a get-out-of-jail. It's basically a realization that there may be some startup, small to medium enterprises that may not be able to afford the minimum wage. And by the way, this is the first time we're going to have a legislated minimum wage, which is roughly 20 rand per hour, which will translate into 3,900 for those employees working 45 hours a week or 40 hours a week, depending on the employer that they work for.
Now we want
they will have to motivate for that application. Yep. So it's not going to be there just for the taking. They'll have to put up a well-motivated application, show their financial position, the economic hardship that they face, the sector in which they operate, and it's going to be considered by the minister and in conjunction with the National Minimum Wage Commission, which is yet to be established.
All right. Now, there are specific regulations also in place for farm workers and domestic workers, allowing for a phasing in of this hourly rate. Shouldn't these workers be getting protection from the onset, Osborne?
They will get protection. I think it's another realization that perhaps to phase them in immediately on 20 rand per hour might cause some bit of hardship on their employers, including obviously private household. So for farm workers, they will be placed on a 18 rand per hour, which will then be reviewed annually, and for a period of 2 years, it might change and be set at 20 rand per hour. The same would apply to domestic workers who will start at 15 rand per hour, and after the annual review by the National Minimum Wage Commission, it may go up to 20 rand per hour.
All right, so Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of the country, has just held this investment summit, Osborne. He's encouraging people both to invest internally in South Africa and create jobs and to come into the country and create jobs. Do we have the kind of regulatory framework that says to a foreign investor, come in, make your money, and support the job creation project?
I think we do. South Africa is one of the most progressive countries in terms of putting in place enabling legislation, in terms of putting in place guidelines, code of good practices. And it's one of those situations where you have to balance the interests of both the employers and the workers. And I think foreign investors should be comfortable that they will be investing in a country that has enabling democratic laws, which will then make the investment see fruit at the end of the day.
Final question to you. We know that South Africa doesn't rank particularly well when it comes to the Doing Business survey put out by the World Bank. Is this wage bill going to add any red tape to business owners and what they're having to do on a yearly basis in terms of regulations?
I doubt it. I think it's been a long time that South Africa has, to the contrary, been in the red tape in terms of low wages for so-called vulnerable workers. And I think this legislation should be seen in a positive light for those who want to invest in this country.
Osborne Mola-tudi from Hogan Lovells, thanks so much for joining us, giving us those insights. Important bill that is set to come into